Hi guys, is everyone today? Hopefully everyone is healthy still. Everyone in my house is doing good. So today we're going to talk about how to measure, and we're going to talk about the different measuring tools that we will use when we cook. Two basic kinds, and it is liquid measuring cups, dry measuring cups. We also have teaspoons and a tablespoon, measuring spoons. And we're going to just talk about the different methods and how you should measure things depending on what ingredient you are measuring and the correct technique. So first, let's talk about liquid measuring cup. Liquid measuring cup, look at it, has a spout. Can we see that little pour spout? They can be plastic or they can be glass. This is a 2-cup measuring cup, so it can measure up to 2 cups. Some are 1 cup. Doesn't matter. The important thing to remember when you measure liquid measuring, liquid whatever, you need to make sure that you put it on a flat surface when you measure, because that's how you're going to get an accurate read. So when you measure, say we're measuring, water, milk, something like that. Say we need 1 cup. You're going to pour it in. And if you are not at eye level with your measuring cup, it may look like you have a 1 cup of water or milk, whatever, oil in there. But without looking down closely, you can't tell exactly. So you always have to get down at eye level. And actually, I measured exactly a cup. So I'm a pro, I guess. But when I look at it from up here, it actually looks like I measured more than a cup. So that's why you always look at it at eye level, always at eye level, okay? If you're holding it up like this, trying to look at eye level, you can tip it this way or that way. It's still not gonna be level. So it has to be on a flat surface, always on a flat surface, all right? Okay, liquid measuring cup for liquid things. Next, let's talk about our dry measuring cups. So they come in 4 different sizes normally. We've got a 1 cup measuring cup, a 1/2 cup, a 1/3 of a cup, and a 1/4 of a cup, the smallest, all right? So depending what you're needing to measure, say we were going to measure a 1/2 cup of flour. So we needed a 1/2 cup of flour for whatever we were making. You're gonna take your flour and you always scoop it into the measuring cup. So I'm gonna take my 1/2 cup measuring cup and I'm gonna stand up. You're going to spoon it in because we don't want to pack it. Because if you pack it, you get too much flour in your product, whatever you're making, and it could make it very dry. The normal way to do it is you scoop it until it's heaping. I'm dropping it on the table. And then you use a flat edge. At school, we always just use our butter knives, works great, as your flat edge, and you're going to level it off. So you have to level it off like this. So it's perfectly level and full, all right? That's how you measure flour or any kind of dry ingredient. Now, when you measure brown sugar, you use a dry measuring cup and you pack it. You always pack brown sugar. So for example, you can spoon it out, it's fine. And you're gonna make sure you pack it in with something else. Pack it down firmly until it's completely full. You're gonna level it off with your straight edge, just like you did for your flour. Always level it off. And when you dump it out, I always say it should look like a little sandcastle, kind of. Get my sugar to sit over there. So like this. If you did it right, when you dump it out, it should look like that. Nice and all packed. No air bubbles, nothing. So that's the way you measure brown sugar. All right, now to measure white sugar. It's similar to brown sugar, but you don't have to pack it. It doesn't have the same consistency it's not gonna pack, but you can just straight scoop it. So you just reach in, scoop it. Say you need 1/4 of a cup of sugar. You just scoop it, but always level it off with your straight edge, just like we did for the brown sugar and your flour, because you always want it level. If it's heaping up, it's not an accurate measurement. And when you're baking, it's very important that your measurements are accurate, or it can mess up the whole entire product. Even if you're just making cookies, the littlest adjustment to flour, sugar can make a big difference in how it turns out. So you have to make sure you measure accurately. Now, some things it doesn't matter if you measure accurately, like soups. You can add spices and ingredients to taste and see like what tastes best and add maybe a little more of this or more of that. But with baking, it needs to be very precise, so exact, okay? So when you measure white sugar, scoop in, level it off. The only one you don't want to scoop in is flour, because you don't want to pack down your flour, because you don't want to overdo it on the flour, or your cookies would be really dry or whatever you're making. Okay, all right guys, now we are going to talk about measuring spoons. Different sizes. The largest one is a tablespoon. Then there's a teaspoon, a 1/2 teaspoon, and a 1/4 of a teaspoon. The biggest mistake made when cooking in the lab is mixing up a tablespoon and a teaspoon. So when we made French toast the other semester, somebody put in a tablespoon of cinnamon when they were supposed to put in a teaspoon of cinnamon. Big difference. If you put a tablespoon in, that is way too much spice. It was nasty and they ended up having to throw it away. You want to make sure you read your recipe and that you know if you're supposed to be putting in a tablespoon or a teaspoon. So 1 tablespoon, and I say you can remember tablespoon versus teaspoon. A tablespoon, picture a table. A table is big. A teaspoon, think of a teacup. Teacups are small. So if you need a tablespoon, it's the big one, table. If you need a teaspoon, it's the smaller one, teacup, okay? Just like a way you can remember it, maybe it might help. So when you measure, it's the same as you do measuring cups. You want to make sure it's level. So say we're measuring 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm gonna go my way. You are going to scoop in and level it off. Now this container is nifty because it has a flat edge. So it has its own built-in flat edge, so you can just level it off as you pull it out. Now, if for some reason it didn't, say we were measuring baking soda, and it didn't, you're gonna use your flat edge, whoop, make it level, okay? So the key is to make sure everything is level, make sure you're reading your recipe and using the correct measuring spoon, that you're not using a tablespoon if you should be only doing a teaspoon, all right? And then you should be great. You'll be the best cooks ever. All right? All right, guys. So now that we've covered measuring, remember we've got our liquid measuring cup to review. Always gonna set it on a flat surface. Always gonna look down at eye level after you pour your liquid. We have our dry measuring cups. When you measure brown sugar, you're packing it in. Everything else you can scoop other than flour. You're gonna spoon your flour into your measuring cup. You're always gonna level off with your flat edge. And I think that's good. So I will be following up with some review in our Google Classroom. And next time we are going to cook. So all right, something else I didn't mention, but I want to talk about is what else we use our dry measuring cups for. So we use our liquid measuring cup for anything liquid. We said milk, water, oil, juice, anything that you can pour, you're going to use the liquid measuring cup. That's why there's a pour spout. Now, dry measuring cups, even though things might not be dry, obviously we're going to use it for flour, sugar, brown sugar, but we're also going to use it for some things that maybe aren't totally dry. For example, if a recipe calls for sour cream, we're gonna use our dry measuring cups because we can't pour sour cream. We're gonna have to pack it in and level it off. So we're gonna use our dry measuring cups. Peanut butter, we're gonna use our dry measuring cup. Even though it's not dry, we're still gonna use our dry measuring cups to measure that. Same thing, you're gonna pack it in, make sure there's no air bubbles, level it off. Basically, the only thing you're using your liquid measuring cup for is complete liquid that you can pour. Otherwise, you're just gonna use your dry measuring cups to get accurate measurement. All right.